Thank you, Dr. Amy Kaur, Professor Yong, friends, colleagues. Good morning. As the chairman of the Waste Minimisation and Recycling Task Force of NUS, it's my honor and privilege to introduce to you our 10-year plan towards a zero-waste NUS. It's a 10-year journey, and as in all journeys, before you start your journey, you take stock of where you are. Then you look ahead. What's your next destination? And how are you going to make that journey? How are you going to get there? And lastly, who are our co-travelers? Who do we work together to make that journey? NUS Zero Waste Journey is not new to us. We have started waste minimization and recycling way back in the early 2000s. We started by focusing on the recycling of packaging waste. Then we went on to look at, to introduce the recycling of horticulture waste and later food waste recycling. We team up with NUS Safe to introduce the plastic bag tax and reusable schemes. Also looking at textile recycling to reduce the waste stream. In 2016, the Sustainability Task Force, Sustainability Steering Committee was formed, in which the Waste Minimization and Recycling Task Force is one of the 5 task forces that's parked under this committee to drive the sustainability agenda of NUS. Going forward, we then focus on enhancing horticulture waste recycling, food recycling, and e-waste recycling. And today, at 2020, we're happy to be able to introduce our plan for the next 10 years. Where are we now in terms of recycling? As you can see on this chart, our waste generation has gone down gradually over the years, and our recycling rate has gone up. We have focused on horticulture waste. We have also focused on food waste. And in 2019, our recycling rate was at 24%. Going forward, for the next 10 years, we want to go towards a zero-waste campus. Our focus is on source reduction, reducing the waste at source, to reduce and to reuse as much as possible, and to recover energy from the waste that cannot be avoided, and lastly, to minimize the amount that goes to our incineration plant. By 2030, we hope to divert 90% of the waste from the incineration plant. We also hope to have a culture of waste reduction, to reuse, and if waste is generated, to have this culture of sorting the waste. And back end, we want to make our waste recycling operation as seamless as possible, leveraging on IT to help us achieve that goal. How are we going to achieve that 90% target? We need to reduce our waste generation by 20%. And we were going to achieve that through policy changes to green procurement, to encourage product take-back. We would have to divert a portion of our waste to recover energy from it. And we want to increase our recycling rate for horticulture waste, food waste, paper, metal and plastic waste, and also e-waste. And lastly, that last bit, we hope to invest to our efforts into technology in which we can then convert the waste into other useful materials which can then be used again in the resource stream. Our approach will have to focus both on the hardware and the hardware. We need to understand what drives recycling behavior, so we will leverage on behavioral science to understand why people dispose waste or what motivates people to recycle their waste. We have to introduce take-back schemes, like what I mentioned earlier, introduce policies on green procurement. That's the hardware side. We have looked at the hardware. We have to put in place smart technologies to help us conduct recycling in a seamless way, because recycling is a logistic challenge, and we want to leverage on smart technologies to make that as seamless as possible. And we would like to test bed waste recycling technologies to help us achieve that advantage. Now, looking at food waste, currently our recycling rate is at 3.5%, recycling about 209 tons. We hope to increase that to 500 tons, and that will account to 8.5% of our recycling rate. We look at front-of-house recycling and back-of-house recycling. The front-of-house refers to the people in the canteens, and after you have eaten, consume your meal, what happens to the leftover? We aim to recycle, to keep the waste stream clean so that it can then go into the cold digestion facility and then be converted into energy. We're also looking at having on-premise food digesters, and with that, we hope to achieve our target. We will work together with our academic colleagues and our students to understand recycling behavior or waste behavior. We'll be doing food waste composition studies to understand the nature of the waste and how people are behaving. We also experiment with policy changes. Can we adjust the behavior, influence behavior by getting people to consume or to buy food at the right size so that there's less wastage? Lastly, an area that I think is very interesting is the use of analytics to try to predict food demand in our canteens. Is there a correlation between food demand and our timetable? I think there is, but I think we need to do more research into that. Can that be then translated into information for our canteen operators so that they can budget the food preparation so as to minimize wastage? And lastly, if there are leftovers on campus, perhaps we could send out a telegram message to get people to buy at a discounted rate. In terms of paper recycling, we hope to increase the recycling rate from 1.4% to 10.7%. Obviously, we will attempt to go for paperless operations as much as possible, but whatever paper that's being used, we would like to recover as much of it, the waste paper, as possible, and then recycle it. We have to audit the system to make sure that whatever that's been disposed is kept clean so that it can then be recycled efficiently. There's opportunity for paper collection when students move out of their hostels. And we also want to create incentives to encourage more waste reduction at source. Can we have a policy in which you are charged for the amount of waste you throw? Next would be recycling right. Contamination at a recycling bin is something that we struggle with. There's high contamination rate, but could we do more through the design of the bins? Could the bins be designed in such a way that it can communicate to the user as to what recyclables should go into which bins? And you'll hear more about that from a speaker later. We also want to change the reuse habit in tandem with building a healthy campus. We want to have more water dispensers distributed across the campus. Instead of buying a pre-packed drink, you would use your own water bottle, go to the water dispenser, and get the water that you want to consume. We want to enhance the recyclable incentives. We'll work with NUS SAFE to revamp the project box and the tumbler schemes to harness peer-to-peer social influence and behavioral insights. We also want to phase out single-use disposable items. Next, students living in hostels, when they move out at the end of the term, a lot of useful materials are left over. Could we give this material a second chance? Could we give this pre-loved item a second chance to be reused? Here we are looking at electrical appliances, clothing, and so on and so forth. Again, you will hear more about it from our other speakers. E-waste take back. E-waste recycling rate is at 1.4%. I would say it's quite comprehensive right now because e-waste from our operations are all recycled, and we hope to close the loop, increase it by another 7 tons, increase it by another 0.1%. We want to set up more e-waste collection boxes around campus. Lastly, the waste that's being left. We want to recover energy from the waste, and we have been working with Professor Tong Yen Hua from our Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering Department and E2S2 to have a pilot probe plant to see how we can convert waste into energy. Lastly, our recycling operation. We would like to have an integrated waste and recycling service. It should be location-specific data can then be transmitted through smart means, through wireless technology, so that operations can be optimized and our recycling can be efficient. Lastly, our journey, we can't make that journey alone. We need to make the journey with the community. And who are these people? It will be our staff and our students, our researchers, our industry partners, as well as government agencies. Can we co-create a zero-waste campus together? Can we foster behavioral change? Can we grow the social norm for waste minimization, reuse, and waste sorting? I believe that if a substantial proportion of our community is doing it, the rest will then follow suit. We can have technologies, we can be the test bed for waste recovery technologies or recycling technologies, and we look forward to partnering government agencies to introduce new policies and programs, especially on product take-back. With that, I conclude my presentation, and I will look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much.